Just another minute. Hi, this is Sally Flashberger from the Wisconsin Board for People with Developmental Disabilities, and we're here for another Living Well Wednesday. We're excited today to have Molly Cooney from BPDD and Shannon Webb from inControl. They're here today. They're going to talk about self-employment planning, and they're going to go through some great modules and give us all sorts of good information about self-employment. So I'm going to turn it over to them, and they're going to take it away for the rest of the time. Thanks a lot.
Awesome. Thanks, Sally. So like Sally said, my name is Molly Cooney. I work for the Wisconsin Board for People with Developmental Disabilities along with Sally. And I work on our employment projects. So BPDD, as our organization is otherwise known, one of our focuses is employment. And so we do a number of projects to try to help more people with developmental and intellectual disabilities work in the community alongside people without disabilities. And on lots of our employment projects, we get to partner with Shannon Webb. She's our consultant who does a lot of the technical assistance. So I just want to share a couple of projects that we have related to employment and then talk very briefly about the self-directed employment planning modules, which is a mouthful, that we'll be sharing in more depth today. So a couple of projects that we have related to employment are the Employment First Partner Grants. These grants try to support community members, organizations, schools to work on building awareness about employment and possibility of employment for people with disabilities, and helping people understand that people with disabilities can be excellent contributors to the workplace and help with workplace productivity. So those grants are really trying to build awareness. Another project we have is called Partners with Business. Partners with Business is a project that is looking at helping disability employment service providers work more with businesses to increase natural supports on the job. So rather than having a job coach be at the workplace to support the employee with a disability, we're trying to support the business to take ownership of that employee with a disability and find a coworker who can provide some of those natural supports while on the job. So something else that BPDD does is, besides employment and a number of other topics, is we really try to work on supporting people with disabilities and their family members to advocate for what they want and need and to speak up for their wants and needs. And we find that that is also true in the world of employment. We're trying to support employment service providers to utilize best practices to support people with disabilities on the job, but it's also beneficial to support people with disabilities and their family members to know what their goals are for work, what their interests are, their ideal conditions for a job, so that way they know the questions to ask and how to advocate for what they want and need. And so the modules that we're going to talk about today help people to develop their own employment plan so that way they can be a strong advocate. So these modules were developed many years ago by Shannon Webb and also Nancy Molfenter, with the idea of helping people, like I just said, identify what their employment goals are, to learn more about how benefits can be impacted by employment and ways to use work incentives so that you can keep working and earning and saving while maintaining your benefits. So the modules include a number of different topics that are covered. So they are online, these modules. They are free, which is great, and anybody can be using them now. And today we really wanted just to kind of showcase the modules because we recently re-recorded them and updated them, and we really want to support people to use them. So Shannon's going to walk through these modules, show you what they are, how they work, and then we're going to talk a little bit about how some people are using them now and how some people are going to try using them in the near future, in case any of you would like to use them in similar ways. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to you, Shannon.
All right, thanks, Molly. So I'm going to share my screen here and show you the website where the modules are and all of that. Jump back here. So sorry for scrolling. So the self-directed employment planning modules, like Molly said, we actually developed these back in 2011, Nancy Mulfenter and I. And, you know, with the idea, like Molly said, that we really want to ensure that people with disabilities are really directing and leading their employment plans, that they have a voice in the planning process, and you know, that you know, they kind of have a direction and know what the resources are, you know, before they kind of jump in with a service provider. We really want to see strong partnerships between job seekers and service providers in their employment planning, or families, if it's a family-led situation where a you know, a family is helping a job seeker with their employment plan. So you find the modules by going to the inControl Wisconsin website, which is inControl Wisconsin, all spelled out, and .org. There's a feature, if you scroll down, you can find them in the recent section. So you click on the self-directed employment planning modules, and it brings up the entire series on the web page. And there's 12 different learning modules. Each module is narrated by a self-advocate. We wanted to, again, to make sure that self-advocates were involved in the development and the recording and, you know, production of the modules. Back when we were creating the modules to begin with, Nancy and I, we had the content reviewed by self-advocates and family members to, you know, get their take on it, make sure that, you know, what we created made sense. Along with the 12 learning modules, which I'll show you little examples of those soon, there's a workbook and a resource guide. I'll pop these open and show you what they look like. So the workbook goes through each module, so it's a companion. And if you want a copy of these, you certainly can print it off or download it, but you can also get in touch with Molly, Cooney, and I, because we are having some made. So if you'd like a copy, we certainly can get one to you. So with each module, there's a section, a corresponding section in the workbook, and self-advocates can use this to answer particular questions that really help to shape what their employment plan looks like. So you can see in section 1, and you know, thinking about why you want to work, who supports your desire to work, working for yourself versus working for a business. So do you want to consider self-employment? So there's an introduction to that, and so on and so forth. So each, like I said, each module has a corresponding workbook section that really gets at what the person wants in their life and why it's important to them, and helps them document their skills and interests and so on and so forth, and who's going to help them. And then at the end, there is a bit of a summary here, where the person and whoever's helping them can pull together, oops, sorry, scrolling on Zoom is sometimes challenging, can pull together what the overall employment plan looks like, who they want to contact, you know, why, what steps that they want to take, who will assist with that. And then there's also a resource guide that is broken down by each module as well. So rather than lumping a bunch of resources together, what we do is we broke them up into relevant sections with the modules. So as you can see, the modules talk, I'll just read them here. Everyone can work, so it's a foundation of why work is important and how work can work for everyone. A working life, kind of again, what it means to be working, what you know, kind of you have to, your responsibilities around work, thinking about your future, so that's really thinking about, you know, what you want out of a job and what you don't want. Overcoming barriers to employment, whether that be transportation, or lack of experience, lack of education. There's a variety of different barriers in there that are discussed. Dealing with public benefits, so, you know, knowing those work incentives, knowing that you're not going to lose, you know, those important benefits, especially the Medicaid benefits if you need supports. you know, who's involved in employment planning and providing those supports, understanding the types of supports that job coaches, job developers, DVR provides, understanding the resources that you can access for employment, and then advocating for what you need. So a lot of times people don't know what to do if they're told no, or a service is denied. So that goes through kind of how they can be better self-advocates. And then two modules on getting the help you need. So really identifying the right service agency for you, and there's some interview questions, things for self-advocates and families to consider prior to working with a particular agency. And then also on the flip side, the self-directed side of that, you know, if you're choosing to hire an independent employment support person to work with you on your employment plan or with job coaching, that there's some considerations there for that, and interview questions so you can find the right person. So there's sample guides and templates for planning in the resource guide as well. So going back to the modules here. So there's an introduction, a conclusion, and 10 main learning modules. So what I will do is show a little out of module 1. I'll back up so you can see what this is all about. Make sure my sound is going to be working. Okay.
Welcome to Module 1 of the Self-Directed Employment Planning Training. This module is called Everyone Can Work. My name is Claire. I'm a self-advocate from Madison, Wisconsin. I will be your narrator for this module. In this module, you'll hear about some laws that protect the rights of people with disabilities to live and work in their communities. You will also learn why some common myths about employment for people with disabilities are not true. This module will help you think about good reasons to work and help you understand that you need to do some planning to find the best job match for you. You will find the worksheets that go with this module in section 1 of the Employment Planning Workbook. After you go through module 1, you can use the workbook to answer the questions to start creating your plan for employment. There is also a section in the resource guide that goes with this module. If you have not downloaded the workbook or resource guide yet, click on the Resources tab on the right-hand corner of the screen to download the workbook before you go through this module. You have the right to work in a job in the community. Unfortunately, many people with disabilities do not have jobs in the community. Almost 80% of people with disabilities are not working. People with disabilities often face both personal and social barriers to employment. Before the disability rights movement in the early 1970s, people with complex disabilities were excluded from working. The general belief of society was that people with disabilities needed to be taken care of and need special places to live, learn, and work. Since then, laws and services have changed, and beliefs are shifting. More and more people with and without disabilities can see that everyone has the right to live in the community, and everyone has skills and talents to work, given the opportunity.
So I'm going to stop that there and show a little bit of another one. As you can see, you know, there's not a lot of animation on the screen or, you know, fast moving kinds of things. It's really a lot of content. You know, I'm sure there are ways that we could have made the, more animated or incorporating more videos, but the hope is that, service providers, families, will support self-advocates to listen to parts of these, stop, talk about it, help the person, understand the context or the meaning of things if needed, and then move on, but then, to the next section and so on and so forth. So, each module is less than 30 minutes long, but, some people may have a hard time really taking in all of the information, presented in each module. So again, it lays some foundational learning, some important concepts for people to become familiar with, so that they, can be more involved in their employment plan. Let's see. So I'm going to show just out of another module, just so you get a little bit more of a flavor.
Welcome to Module 8 of the Self-Directed Employment Planning Training. This module is called Understanding Resources for Employment and Advocating for What You Need. My name is Colin. I am a self-advocate from Madison, Wisconsin. I will be your
cut off there.
In this module, you will learn about the resources that might be available to you and how employment supports and services are funded. These resources can be blended in a way that creates a whole plan that meets your employment planning needs. Although support systems and the rules for fundings are always subject to change, this module will help you to understand the basics about funding resources for employment supports and the ways you can access those resources and advocate for what you need. If you are still in high school, there are a few ways that you can work toward your future goals. The first thing that can help you prepare for employment is to take classes that are about career exploration. Most high schools have classes designed to help all students figure out what they might want to do for work as adults. Another good idea that goes hand in hand with taking career exploration classes is to take extracurricular types of classes in high school that interest you. Your case manager and teachers should have a list of all the classes that are available. Topics for such classes might be graphic art, cooking, keyboarding, money management, poetry writing, or sculpting. In addition to classes on a variety of subjects, you can also get involved in activities that are available through your school, such as a club or a sport. There is another great way to figure out what really interests you and what subjects and activities you like. Let your parents, teachers, case manager, and other people who help you at school know that you want to take any classes that are offered and explore your options for after you graduate.
So as you can see, you're able to jump around here if you wanted to find out specific information about DVR, DVR services, family care, IRIS, and whatnot. So there's a layout along the side of each learning module with all the various topics that you can learn about. So I'm gonna stop sharing.
Hey Shannon, can I say one quick thing about that?
Yeah.
So I think also on that outline thumb notes, can you click on notes?
Right. Oh yes. So right. So there's a transcript that goes with each module, right? And so you can read the transcript along the side if needed. And then another option too is you can always download the transcripts in PDF version, right from the actual website itself as well. So if you'd rather read through the material rather than listen to it, that's another option to learn. Is that what you want? We're hoping to.
Yeah. Okay.
I
kind of like seeing the words as someone's speaking. So yeah, thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a variety of different ways to, get the information. Here, let me stop sharing. Oh, one other thing I wanted to point out before I stop sharing, sorry, on my list here is we did add a survey at the end. So if you do start using these, and we'll talk more about how to go about maybe starting to use them, please take the survey at the end, because we are looking for feedback. And actually just yesterday, Molly got a survey response and shared that with me, and we're going to make some changes. So, adding in some links to videos and, success stories of people with disabilities working. So definitely want to hear feedback from you. All right. There we go. So, you know, like I mentioned, these were developed back in 2011, and we did some marketing of them. Some, you know, people started using them either individually or in groups, and then we updated them recently so that we could get them back out into the world with, you know, more up-to-date information. You know, what we're hoping is that, you know, more service providers, more families, more self-advocates will start to use these modules either individually, you know, in individualized services, or in small group related services. So if you are a service provider and you're doing some pre-vocational services with a small group of people, there's certainly something that a skills instructor could be doing, you know, going through the modules, having some conversations, helping people use the workbook, looking at the resources and whatnot. Another, you know, so in preparation to going to DVR, so that they can bring their ideas and bring their skills, you know, the list of their skill sets and their interests to DVR to before they write their IPE. Another option would be if, you know, if you're doing some family-led work or working with a group of families to, you know, get a small group of families together to go through the modules with, you know, their family members who are looking for work. And again, making it an opportunity for families and job seekers to talk, learn about resources together, share their ideas, you know, cross-pollinate and build, you know, relationships and networks around employment. But then again, you know, like I said, they could be just used by individuals at home. They could be used, you know, in one-to-one services. So we see a variety of different applications here. And like I mentioned before, they're not exactly full of bells and whistles, but they provide some really great foundational information and, you know, some planning tools that really help put people into the driver's seat with their employment plans. So did I miss anything, Molly?
No, I think that's great. I think they also can be used almost just as a resource, like somebody needs information on benefits or on, you know, some self-direction or whatever, and they can be used at that moment, that point of time.
Absolutely. And that's where too some of the transcripts come in handy. And if you download those to your computer, maybe there's some answers in there, you know, a paragraph you could pull out to share with someone about benefits or about working with DVR or you know, advocating for what you need, that kind of thing. So we do have Kristen on the line with us too. And Kristen Voss, she's a parent leader in the Middleton area and an educator. And she is going to share with us a little bit of information about what she's thinking, you know, she'd like to do with these employment planning modules, right? With your daughter, Nicole? Oh, you're muted.
Sorry, I thought I clicked it. Am I better now? Yep. Okay. Hi, everybody. As Shannon introduced me, my name is Kristen, and I teach psychology at Memorial High School, but I am also a co-facilitator of a family group called SPARK. It's not an acronym. We just needed some sparks to get ourselves motivated to start connecting as family groups. And so that's where the name came from. A friend and I run this group out of Middleton, but it's open to anybody. And the group is as a networking group, and we do 2 educational meetings. Well, we're changing it for the virtual world. We're going to do 2 educational meetings, 2 social meetings, and then 2 building community meetings. So things that are structured more around conversation and interaction and dialogue, because we don't want to put a whole bunch of education out on Zoom right now. We want to be able to start building some community and having conversations. So as Liza and I were thinking about the changes for Spark, I've started hearing about these self-directed modules from Shannon and Molly, and I decided this would be a really good way for really to hold myself accountable to work with my daughter, Nicole. I've had great intentions of all these wonderful things I'm going to do with Nicole, but life gets in the way and the stack gets bigger and bigger and the to-do list gets longer and longer. And so when I got the email from these guys about possibly leading a cohort, I was like, that's what it's gonna take for me to support Nicole in the best way I can. She's 19. Sorry, there's a plane going over. and she has autism, an intellectual disability, and epilepsy. She is very gregarious and friendly, and definitely wants to be out in the community, in the world, and connecting with people. So the pandemic is something that has, caused some problems for her. But when we got into the pandemic, she already had a job at Walgreens as an internship. So she continued doing that for a couple weeks. And then through a lot of the education that I've gotten from these two, I came up with the idea of asking the therapy clinic where she goes for OT and speech if she would be able to volunteer or possibly have an internship where she would get paid to work with some of the smaller kids in their groups. And the clinic was totally open to the idea. So she did that for the summer, and hopefully will continue with a group this fall. They were 6 to 10-year-olds, and they were working on sensory stuff. So Nicole's job coach would meet her at therapy, and she had to really start working on understanding that this therapy wasn't for her because she spent so much of her life in therapy and in different groups. But it's been great to watch her grow and help see her making some connections between work. And that's what mom does, that's what dad does, and that's what everybody keeps talking to her about. So now she's got these opportunities that we can kind of build off of as we work with the self-directed modules. And as I said before, I want to put this out to Spark because I know that my intentions are good, but my follow-through isn't always. And if I have other people that I have to be held accountable to, then I see it working much more efficiently and actually coming to fruition. So my plan is, I already have one family interested. My plan is to continue to put it out in our Spark, well, not to continue, to start putting it out in all our Spark communications and social media, and get probably 5 other families. I think 6 total would be the most I want to handle right now for the first one, and just really hold ourselves to a certain date and time. So let's say every Thursday at 6. And the family I connected with, they're good friends of ours, and so we've already been in each other's bubble. They want to come to our house so that there can be some fun, and there can be an outing, and there can be, something social to it as well. With the other people that I recruit, that'll be an option, but it'll also be an option to have them on Zoom like this so that we can all just be talking together and going through the modules on our own laptops. But I think the key piece for us is, like I said, that accountability of a set time. And then I love the idea, as Shannon was saying, cross-pollination. So as I hear that so-and-so is interested in basketball, my son has some connections with basketball, so maybe we can help put something together. So I think that there's just a lot of really cool opportunities ahead. And so we have to get creative in this virtual world, and I feel like this is one of the best options to do that, to support Nicole and making some more concrete plans and connections for her around work.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Thanks.
Thanks so much. Yeah. Anyone have any questions for Kristen?
You can either put them in the chat or just ask. I got to get used to this. As I said, I'm a teacher, so I'm going to start virtually teaching next week.
Right.
I didn't see any questions in the chat, and I don't think there's any on Facebook either at the moment.
Okay.
Yeah, and I mentioned service providers, but schools, right? And really, you could be using this virtually with kids in transition. You certainly could do it in person or virtually, absolutely. So there's definitely different kinds of ways to do it. Yeah. We do have a question in the chat. I see. How do people get a hold of you if interested in Spark?
Yep, I'm putting that in the chat as our website and Facebook. Facebook is usually the best way because we check it more regularly, but we have an email as well. So I'll put all that in the chat. Thanks.
Great. Yeah, so Molly, do you want to talk a little bit about what we're hoping to do with these, with BPDD and getting more groups like Kristen's or groups of self-advocates?
Yeah. Sure. Make sure to jump in, Shannon. You're kind of the brainchild behind this. Okay, so we are wondering if supporting a few more family groups, similar to what Kristen is doing, would be useful. And we want to see if that helps people really create their plan, get a job, down the line, or switch jobs or maintain jobs, whatever it may be. So we have a small pot of funds where we would like to support a facilitator, so a parent facilitator or a family member who would like to support their own child, their own transition age or adult child, and then other families to go through the modules in a similar way to Kristen. So this can be, organized or structured in a way that works for them. So it could be really individualized to each group. And we would provide the books, the resource guide, and the workbook for each family to participate, to utilize. And then we would also provide a small stipend for the facilitator, because it will be extra time on there, for them as well to facilitate those groups. Shannon, what else?
Well, just that also, besides, family groups, if there are self-advocates out there that want to, support their peers or facilitate their peers in planning, going through the modules and developing their own self-directed employment plans. We're also interested in getting in touch with those people and supporting their efforts through funding as well.
And then I think, depending on the level of interest, Shannon might be available to join some of those groups. And Shannon's a wealth of knowledge about employment. So she's a great person to have her ear and to brainstorm ideas with her regarding employment for people.
Yeah, and one thing that I'm going to be working on over the next few weeks is a facilitator's guide. So just some tips and tricks, things to consider, or additional questions, conversation starters for the facilitators if you're facilitating a group to go through these modules. So
right.
But I love, like Kristen, what you were saying, the idea that the accountability piece. I do hear from a lot of families, like, we really want to develop a better plan, or and do this with our loved ones, but we don't know where to start, and then don't really have a structure to do that. So this provides that, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Any other questions or comments from anyone?
I have a question.
Yeah.
How many families or groups are you thinking you can support to apply? And then also, is there like an application to apply, or do they just need to email Molly? Or
yeah, this is really informal, low key. So you can just email me and we'll chat with Shannon and see what we all are thinking. I think numbers, maybe 5 or 6 groups, I think seems reasonable. We're really looking to learn as well. So this doesn't I don't want anyone to feel intimidated, like you want to do it, but you're worried you won't know how to do it. But really, we're just trying to learn more about unique and creative ways to support families and people with disabilities to do these modules. Because we really think they're going to provide people with a lot of information so they can really advocate for what they want and need. We hear all the time about bad job matches that people end up in. And I think the more that people know about what they want and what would work for them, and that they can speak up and ask questions, the better off all people will be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because if we like Molly said, we want to learn, and if we need to make any more changes or do anything to improve them. And so that's where also that either through that process, or again, if you use them and you want to fill out that survey, or feel free to also email Molly or myself with your thoughts. We'd love to hear them. So
yeah, and maybe you said this, Shannon, but we do know about a service provider that's using them through their virtual services. So if there's any providers on the line who are, gearing up for potential more virtual services in the fall and winter, if our numbers of COVID increase, this I think could be a great curriculum structure to actually use.
Yeah, we were hoping she'd be able to join us today, but she had to do something else and didn't know if she'd be able to be done with it by then. But it was Colleen up at Ventures in Shell Lake. She's been working on these with a small group to complete their employment plan. So really great that she's using that.
I think too, if there's any self-advocates or families on, they too might go to their provider and say, hey, here's a good idea for virtual services, so if they don't feel like they can facilitate and lead a group, that might be another way to get more people involved.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah, or you know, like you said, families and self-advocates could take it to a service provider and say, hey, help me with this, right? This is, I want to complete a plan like this. So yeah, great. Well, I think unless there's any other questions or comments, and I think that's, you know, all we have. Molly's email is in the chat. I will put mine in here too. And then you can always reach me through the inControl Wisconsin website, and then Molly through the BPDD website.
All right. Well, thanks. It was all great information. I hope people will access those modules. We'll be back here next Wednesday for Living Well Wednesday. I don't know what the topic is. We have not quite decided. So look for our email out to you, but we will always be here on Living Well Wednesdays at 11. So thanks for joining us today, and look forward to seeing you again.